What's going on, guys? So today we have a really fun video in store. This is a collab I did with Dr. Pat Davidson when I was in New York City last week. This is a video discussing 3 common squat errors that we'll see across multiple populations. Dr. Pat is an incredibly knowledgeable dude. He runs the Athletic Weapon Program, recently wrote a book, Rethinking the Big Patterns, and has a course out live on that now. Check those out if you're interested, but now let's dive into the video.
And I'm here to talk to you about 3 things that can go wrong with your squatting. 3 really common errors that somehow kind of got into the fitness zeitgeist, but probably have been taken way too far and misdirected. So the big 3 that we're going to talk about today is going to be people hinging their squat. Rather than actually moving like an elevator, they kind of move like an escalator in many ways. And you don't want to take the escalator when you're squatting, you want to take the elevator. Now, how this got mixed up is because taking the escalator is a really strong way to move a ton of weight, and if you're a competitive power lifter, that's a fantastic way to just move maximal weights through what could be considered a white light squat. But if your goals aren't to be a competitive power lifter, you're probably misapplying a concept that works really well in one area, but not so great for instance, if your goals are hypertrophy of your quads and glutes, or if you're trying to differentiate your training so that you train all the relative resistance training patterns for overall athletic development. Number 2 is going to be people that excessively push their knees out to the side when they squat. You know, it probably got thrown in there when people discovered some of the mechanisms of injury for ACL, which is going to be a rapid movement of valgus for the knee heading towards midline, which obviously is a bad situation. And people got really scared when they'd see their athletes or clients squatting and their knees collapsing towards the middle. And I'm certainly not in favor of getting that out of squats either. But what I want is I want to have the thigh over the shin and the shin over the foot. Much in the way that if I'm trying to strike a nail into a piece of wood with a hammer, I want to have the hammer come straight down into the nail that's lined up straight down into the wood. That's the best way to maximally produce force in a straight line down into the ground, which is what you want to do to really be able to mechanically optimize the squat pattern. So if you're trying to spread the knees and spread the ground and your knees end up 6 inches outside of your feet, you've probably taken that concept too far and applied something that was preventative for ACL injury, and now you've gone ahead and you've lost optimization of alignment for really being able to squat with really good bone positions and being able to take the motion where you want it to go for your goals. Third are going to be people that are essentially married to the barbell. If you ain't barbell back squatting, you ain't squatting. And this is again something that is probably a misapplication taken from the world of powerlifting, where you have to barbell back squat in powerlifting because that's literally the sport. It's one of 3 things that you have to do to be a good competitive powerlifter: squat, bench, and dead. If you are not a competitive powerlifter, guess what? You literally don't have to do any of those things to satisfy your goals. You don't have one option when it comes to trying to hypertrophy your quads, glutes, and hamstrings. There are many options. You want to be able to find the best tool for the job for you on an individualized basis. And for many people, the barbell back squat, for whatever reason, is not going to be the thing that really optimizes your mechanics, leads to your ability to get the highest level of training volume, and feeds into the greatest possible adaptive capabilities that your body can possibly go through to move you towards your goals. So if your goal isn't only to just simply barbell back squat as much weight as you possibly can, you really might want to consider other specialty bars, pieces of equipment like a pendulum or hack squat, or literally any other realm of possibilities that's better suited for your individual anatomy and overall guides you in the safest, most effective way towards what your actual goals are. I'm going to further explain what I meant by talking about people hinging their squat too far back, or essentially kind of deadlifting it or doing a good morning. And you know, for me, I'm a divide and conquer kind of thinker. If I want to develop all the tissues that are associated with hinging, we're going to hinge. And when I want to develop all the tissues associated with squatting, we are going to squat like an elevator. And you know, I work from a principle-based approach that I've outlined in the Rethinking the Big Patterns based model, and some of those those principles include using constraints as a way of really being able to ensure that I get the movement that I'm looking for. So I'm going to talk about one of the easiest to use constraints that you can possibly get, which is a dowel that you can drop behind someone when they're doing a squat motion. If I've got someone squatting in front of me right here and I don't want them to sit their hips too far back and to start hinging their squat, I can always put a dowel behind them and say, hey, if you hit that dowel with your butt, you're not doing what I'm looking for you to do in this particular drill. And I'll tell you, I've tried to talk to people and coach them until I'm blue in the face, and oftentimes this is the best possible solution for that. In addition to that, another thing that's a very easy piece that you can add as a constraint is a wedge for being able to elevate the heels. Oftentimes when I start people in a position of biasing them towards plantar flexion, it creates an alteration of their skeleton through the entire system that prepares them and really allows them to be able to move in more of a vertical displacement perspective rather than a horizontal displacement perspective with their pelvis and thorax. So those are two really easy ways to be able to get that vertical squat that's going to really be able to target some very specific squatting tissues as opposed to a real hingy squat that basically is redundant with deadlifts and good mornings.